Hello, everyone. I'm Rachel. I'm 15 years old. Recently, I learned that my whole life has been a lie. It was an accident, and now I'm not even sure if I can handle the truth. I wish this hadn't happened at all. My family is a little unusual. I have a mom, a dad, and an Uncle Doug. The thing is, I just call him that. He's not really related to us. He's just a very close family friend. Doug has been with us for as long as I can remember. He walked with us, came to dinner almost every day. He was with us on all the holidays, whether it was my birthday, Christmas, or Thanksgiving. And he was present at all the important moments in my entire life. Yes, he was very close to our family. He had been my father's best friend since high school, and their friendship not only overcame many years, they also went through many tough times together. He was like a brother to my dad. So I could really call him my uncle. But my relationship with him wasn't as good as my parents. I mean, he's a good man, and it's cool that my mom and dad have a friend like that. But he's always seemed a little weird to me. Since childhood, it was just like he was taking care of me too much, and it was weird. For example, when I was younger, he sometimes picked me up from school, and I had to explain to my classmates that he was not my second dad, but my Uncle Doug. Also, my parents often asked him to babysit me. Mom and dad would go to dinner at a restaurant. They wouldn't take me with them so that I wouldn't ruin the romance, and they'd ask Doug to look after me. These evenings were full of awkward conversations because we couldn't find common ground, but it was okay. At some point, my parents realized that I could be left with my uncle for longer. They went on vacation without me several times, and I had to stay with Doug for like a week. Needless to say, I didn't like it. I know he was close to our family, but it was still weird when my parents left me with a stranger. Okay, I couldn't go on vacation with my parents because I had to go to school, but they could have safely left me alone at home. I wouldn't do anything wrong. And after another week of living at Doug's house, something happened that turned our family's life upside down. I was at school and I really wanted to go home because I knew that my parents were returning home that night. I was impatient, so we decided to skip class in the middle of the day, get my stuff from my uncle's house, and run home to meet my mom and dad. But what I saw at Doug's house caused me such a storm of emotions that I wanted to scream, fight, and cry at the same time. I wanted to stop by as quickly as possible so I wouldn't have to waste time talking to Doug. I ran into the house and immediately stopped in confusion. My mom was standing in the kitchen making out with my uncle. They panicked and started making excuses and said that this is not what I thought it was. But I was old enough to understand everything. It was clear that my mom was cheating on my dad. They started asking me to not tell my father about it, but I wasn't going to keep their dirty secret. I told them to come to us immediately and confess everything. Otherwise, I'd tell my dad everything myself. And I ran out of the house, and I tried to pull my thoughts together. I didn't expect such an emotional blow. I was walking home scared, and I couldn't stop thinking about what would happen next. When I got home, Dad kept asking me why I was so worried. Apparently, I still could not calm myself down after what I had seen. But 15 minutes later, Mom and Doug arrived, and we had a serious conversation. I just couldn't even look at my mother. How could she do that? How long had it been going on? At least she had the courage to come clean, but that didn't make it any easier after all. This information was a huge blow to my dad. I saw his face and I can't even imagine how he felt then. It's just awful to find out that your wife is cheating on you with your best childhood friend. Naturally, my dad was furious. He shouted, swore, and threatened them. He wanted to kick them out of our house, take me away, and never see them again. But suddenly, Mom blurted out another dose of information. And this time, there was no outcry or anger. Dad and I stood there, and our mouths were hanging open in surprise. Mom and Dad couldn't take me away because he was not my real father. Even when I say it now, my blood runs cold. I thought she was lying because that's impossible, but then Mom tried to explain everything. About 17 years ago, my mom started dating my dad. But 6 months later, he enlisted in the army and had to leave, and my father asked Doug to look after his girlfriend. Apparently, Doug went a little overboard, and they started a relationship that they were trying to hide from my dad. When my father returned from the army, he immediately asked my mother to marry him. This is the moment when my mom and Doug were supposed to come clean in the first place. But they were afraid that the truth would break my dad's heart, and that dad and uncle's friendship would end. So they decided to hide it to keep the relationship going, because the three of them were the dearest people to each other. And soon, Mom discovered that she was pregnant. After determining the time and counting the number of days, she realized that the child was from Doug. This child was me. And now I'm 15 years old and I just found out this information. My whole past looked different to me now. That's why Doug was always with us. He felt not only friendship, but a paternal instinct. That's why Mom trusted him so much. Oh my God, my whole life was a lie. What was I supposed to do with this information? Was I supposed to just move on with my life? At that moment, I had so many emotions jumbled up that I just couldn't express them all. I was mad at my mom and Doug for lying to my dad. I was confused by this new information and I wanted to cry because my family was falling apart. At some point, the dam of my emotions burst and I started yelling at them furiously and kicking them out of the house. I screamed so loud that I almost lost my voice. I think I probably could have been heard on the other side of town. It worked, and Mom and Doug turned and walked away. I was left alone with my dad, who, as it turned out, wasn't really my father. We had a lot of information to think about. Dad was going through his whole life in his head, and he was seeing it in a new way. Doug had been with him all his life, and half of it had been a lie. So my father completely dropped out of life. I could have tried to cheer him up, but I was in the same state as he was. I was thinking about Mom cheating on Dad for 17 years and how they were able to hide it. Unbelievable. I guess Doug was willing to make that compromise to keep his friendship and stay close to his daughter, even though I didn't know he was my real father. These thoughts completely absorbed me. We were like zombies for a few days. We silently walked through the house and didn't know how to behave with each other. But then Dad mustered up the courage to break the silence. The first thing he told me was that he loved me. And he didn't care what Mom and Doug said. He raised me, so he was my real father, no matter what. So he wasn't going to give me to my mom. You know, that was incredibly nice. After recent events, that was exactly what I wanted to hear. In response, I just hugged Dad and said that I loved him too. So the decision was made. We lived together and no one could stop us. Everything was fine for about a week. Then small domestic problems began. You see, I had no idea how much Mom actually did in the house. And then it fell on my shoulders. I had to cook my own breakfast, lunch, and dinner and keep the house clean. But it was difficult and it weighed on me. Dad helped me as much as he could, but he was always busy fighting with Mom. They fought on the phone and discussed their divorce. Dad didn't want to give her anything. Not me, not the property. And it was the right thing to do in his situation. But Mom kept threatening him with courts and the police. Technically, I was old enough to choose who I wanted to live with. But Mom understood that, and her argument was that Doug was my real father. These circumstances upset my father very much, and he was always sad. I can understand that. Imagine that your whole life turned into the same hell. I bet you'd be sad too, and soon came the moment I dreaded. Mom wanted me to do a DNA test. I did not want to do it, because I was so scared of the results. But my father agreed. Apparently he was tired of fighting with my mother for me, who was not even his, and soon he became depressed. I can't blame him. I really felt sorry for him. So I did the test and we waited. Those 2 days were hell for me and Dad. We did not expect anything good and prepared to say goodbye. The letter with the results of the test came soon. Dad opened it with trembling hands and looked through it. Then he screamed so loud that my ears nearly burst, and it was a cry of joy. In the test results, Doug wasn't my father. It was amazing. Obviously, my mother was wrong in her calculations, and the man who raised me all my life and was always there for me was my biological father. Although after everything that happened, I didn't care. I loved my dad, and I wouldn't leave him for my mom and her lover. After that, the dispute between my parents was resolved very quickly, and I was left alone with my father. I didn't want to see my mom and Doug anymore. Yes, these people have been by my side all my life, but they have lied to me consistently. Neither Dad nor I deserve to be treated like that. I know it's going to be hard, and it's going to take a lot of work to make our new life work, but we're going to get through this. Dad says we're gonna be fine. I believe him. This man has never deceived me, so I am really glad I stayed with him. Thanks for watching, guys. Tell your stories about your family relationships in the comments. And don't forget to share this story with your friends.